What if I told you that there's an art supply that combines the magic of oil pastels and gouache? Smooth, playful crayons that go onto the paper really nicely, can be blended pretty smoothly, but the best part? They dry. So you can also use them in sketchbooks and don't have to worry about making such a big mess as you often do with oil pastels. If you've ever heard about the Faber Castell Gelatos, these are kind of similar but still different, so I want to compare them to those as well. You can see that I bought quite a few of those. I got the Shuttle Art Tempera sticks, I got the Neocolor Tempera sticks. These were in the wrong order, so obviously I had to correct that. Same thing happened with the Shuttle Art Tempera sticks. And I also bought a really small set of Faber Castell Gelatos just so I could compare the consistency and tell you what the difference is. I really had to pry my way into this box. You can see that the gelatos are also kind of like lipsticks, very comparable in that sense to the tempera sticks that we're trying today. The Neocolor paint sticks and the Shuttle Art paint sticks are extremely comparable. I would not be surprised if they come from the same factory. They have a slightly different color range in their 30 color set, and I also bought the pastel color set from Shuttle Art. So here's a bit of a comparison for color range from the different brands. Now, the first piece that I'm showing you today is actually not the first piece that I created with these, but I wanted to build a little bit of a rapport with you in this video and show you something first that had, in my opinion, the least amount of ugly stage. It still did. That is just something that happens with crayon type materials. It's not going to look pretty immediately. It's just what happens unless you're doing a first layer with something that's a bit more smooth, like watercolors or gouache or maybe even markers. The first layers are gonna look rough because you're gonna see the paper still poking through, and unless you really like that texture, I think it is a bit too busy in an art piece, but that is what happens with these. You get a little bit of an ugly stage. Here I was trying to recreate a Studio Ghibli scene. I believe this is from the movie My Neighbor Totoro, and I simplified it quite a bit, obviously, because I am using these really thick, heavy crayon type sticks, and these are actually meant for kids, maybe even toddlers. Somebody told me they're meant for toddlers. So these are supposedly washable. I tried to dissolve them with water. You're gonna see that later on. I don't think that they dissolve with water that well, but I suppose if your kid draws on the table instead of the paper, they're probably easy to get and wash off. So that's probably what washable means in that case. It does not really mean water soluble in a sense of how an art supply is supposed to dissolve with water, but you're gonna see that with the next piece that I'm going to be doing. But here with this one, I was just layering really thickly, and because this was not the first piece that I did with them, I knew a little bit what I was doing at this point. I knew that I had to press really hard so that they could go really nicely onto the paper. Here I was using a sketchbook from Artex. I wanted to try that one. At this point, I can't really give you any review on whether I like it because the only supplies that I used it with are these tempera sticks, and I was using those tempera sticks for the first time too. So I'm gonna refrain from giving you a review of the sketchbook at this point, but I can link it in the description box below if you're interested in that. It is not really a watercolor paper or not even a mixed media. I think it's meant for markers and stuff like that, but I think it worked really well with these. You can see a bit of a glare here and there. I changed light settings quite a bit throughout filming all of these because it looked very different with different lights. My studio lights produced a bit of a glare in the beginning, and I wasn't really sure how to film that properly, but I kind of figured it out. But there's a few changes here and there, but I guess it also helps you see what they look like. I also used some of the metallic colors, so that's where a bit of the shimmer comes from as well. I realized that the metallic colors in both the Shuttle Art and the Neocolor sets, they are very transparent, but that can be a good thing if you're doing glazing, like I did with this piece here a lot. I built up my layers a lot. I used a little bit of a colored pencil here in the end to refine it a little bit, but it doesn't go on to the tempera, I suppose, is what's coming out of it. It doesn't go onto it that well. You'd have to wait until it is really, really dry, and then it lets you put it on a little bit. It is comparable to gouache in that sense. I've also found that the colors dry a little bit similar to gouache, which makes sense because tempera and gouache are also very similar. Gouache, I would say, is like a little bit fancier version of the original tempera colors. So here's how the first one here that I'm showing you turned out. This was actually one of the first ones that I worked on. Here I was actually trying a few things. I used my blending stump that I'm used to using with oil pastels, and I tried it over and over again to see if I could use it with these, and the answer is no. They don't really move with the blending stump. Later on at the end of the video, I'm gonna show you a comparison how the oil pastels that I have blend with the blending stump, and I'm also going to show you a few other comparable art supplies and how those dissolve in comparison. But here I was using a cold press watercolor paper that I really enjoy for oil pastels, and when I couldn't really blend it out with the blending stump, I experimented a little bit with water, and this is the ugly stage of this piece. If you ask me, it looks a little bit like kids art, which makes sense. I'm using kids art supplies, but I still wanted a nice result here, at least nice enough to show in a video. So I kept on adding a lot of layers. I'm pretty happy with how the result looks now. But this was definitely a learning process, and I learned a lot about trust when it came to these, let's call them crayons. Here I tried to smudge them with my fingers, then I used water, and the blue one you can see, this really dark, almost looking like an ultramarine blue. They don't really have names on them, they don't have color names. This color dissolved a lot. It was probably the saving grace of this particular piece. The other colors that I tried did not dissolve like that. One of the turquoise colors that I also used also dissolved with the water quite a bit, but it really depends on the color that you're using. There's a big inconsistency across the different colors, which does make sense. These are kids' art supplies. I just would suggest make sure if you really want them, get them at a good price. Get them at a kid's art supply price. I don't remember how much I paid exactly, but I probably paid more than when you ordered them from the US, I suppose. I think the Neocolors were easier to get for me. They were in stock when I first ordered, whereas with the Shuttle Art ones, I had to wait for them for a while to arrive. And it really doesn't matter which ones you have, honestly. Of course, the pastel colors from Shuttle Art really were among my favorite color choices with all the pieces that I did. I love the subtle colors. They're absolutely beautiful. With the other sets, you get a lot of very vibrant colors, obviously. And I think that the pastel set is really a nice complementary set. And with the the 30 colors from the main shuttle art colors that I got, and with the pastels there was only, I think, 2 overlaps. One was a light green tone and one was the white. That obviously makes sense to be in both sets, but otherwise the colors are very complementary. And like I said, the other brand, the Sienna color, I think that's how you say it. You could also say Senna color, I suppose. They're very similar. The packaging and the plastic that the sort of crayons or sticks are in is ever so slightly different. The cap looks a little bit different, but the consistency is very much the same. I used them interchangeably and just picked the colors that were speaking to me that I wanted to use. And there's a very slight variation in the colors. So I would suggest, if you want to get these after this video, then get the brand that is easier for you or more available. Honestly, these were a bit of a battle in the beginning because I was so excited to try them out. I had seen a few videos from other creators. I will try my best to link them in the description if I can still find them. And they made me really excited about these. And what I did not keep in mind is that they have very different art styles compared to mine. I really admire loose art styles, especially when it comes to landscapes. I admire these really quick and plein air styles. So this is what I was going for with this one. I wanted a quick landscape that has a playfulness to it and still looks charming though. I think I did achieve a bit of the charming factor in the end, but it did not really go as planned, this one. In the middle of it, I almost gave up on it because I thought that it looked atrocious, and that's what I told the people in my Discord chat from my membership. I thought it looked really bad, but I later on turned it a bit into a mixed media piece here too and added a bit of colored pencils for some additional detail, and you're gonna see that that really helped the piece out a lot. But also keep in mind, this was the second piece, or maybe you could also say kind of the first piece, because I was working on the abstract swirly one and this one at the same time. So here I really had not figured out yet how to use these. And then I also used them in my off-camera sketchbook just for some quick doodles, just to get a feel for them a little bit more. And I really liked them for that, for the really playfulness where you don't have too much pressure, which is hard to do in a video when you know that a lot of people are gonna watch. It is really hard to turn off that pressure. But if you're creating art just for yourself and nobody's gonna see it and you just wanna be a bit playful, then these could be really fun, especially in a sketchbook, because they do dry, and once they're dry, they don't really rub off that much. They're not waterproof because obviously they're washable, but they, for the most part, don't really dissolve that much with water. And honestly, they don't seem to rub off as much as gouache does in a sketchbook, but I'd have to test that a lot more to really be able to say that that's a long-term thing and they will never rub off. I can't say that at this point. But as soon as I kind of embraced, this was the section kind of where I started to embrace more this playfulness of my inner child and also stop worrying so much about wasting the product. I don't know why I had this worry. I think it comes from using the more expensive oil pastels that I'm used to, and also crayons that are a lot more expensive and just not meant for kids. I was a bit timid in my application at first, so the first layers were really rough, and I thought I'd dissolve the crayons or the tempera sticks over time with blending stumps or water or whatever, but I realized I have to blend them with themselves. I have to blend one color into another or just put them down so heavily that they already cover the surface that I want to cover. You can see my attempts of kind of fixing this wonky piece. I had a reference from random Google Street View, and I thought I'd saved that reference, but I didn't. So I couldn't really go back and look at the original reference anymore. So I had to wing it. And I really realized with this piece that if I want to do architectural stuff, I have to have a sketch and a bit of a plan, and I can't just wing it, especially not with an art supply that is meant to be so playful. This just was not for me, but it was a big learning curve. Now this one here is my favorite one that I've created with them. I really like the end result, and let's say the last third of it or so was really fun. But halfway through, I was totally freaking out. I thought that this was hideous and I couldn't pull it off. You can see that I also used the gelatos here. And I think here you can really nicely see the difference. The gelatos, they are not as smooth or soft. They are a lot more like crayons. I'm gonna compare them to the Caran crayons a little bit afterwards. And I think they compare to those a lot more than to these tempera sticks. These tempera sticks are really unlike anything that I've ever used. I was definitely expecting them to be like oil pastels because they're so soft. And in a way they are, but they also are not in a lot of ways. We are reaching the ugly stage of this piece here, so please bear with me. I promise you it's gonna get better once we build up the layers. And also in the comments below, let me know if you already know which piece that I am painting. I did kind of a bit of a master study here from a really famous painting. I enjoy the art of this artist quite a lot, and I wanted to do a master study for a while, but I definitely want to do one with oil paints now because that's gonna be a lot easier, or at least I'm probably gonna enjoy the process more or learn more from that because the original pieces, I suppose, were created with oil. But yeah, with these, I just had to really figure out how to apply them because also once they are dry, for the most part, they're pretty much dry. I was also expecting them, because they're called tempera sticks, to be a lot more like tempera or gouache as they are. I've tried tempera in the past and it was very similar to gouache. It was just a little bit more watery and a little bit more streaky in my opinion, but I suppose it's probably also dependent on the brand. But otherwise, they were very similar to gouache. And so I was expecting these to kind of still be able to move around a bit. But once they're dry, for the most part, they're dry. But that also gives you the opportunity to layer them. You can see here, I layered them so much. You would never be able to layer oil pastels as easily as I did with these here. The light colors here, this is where it started to look really nice and feel so fun. This was the best part of the piece, honestly, to build up all of these layers and the, dare I say, water lilies and the pond. And I just really enjoyed this part of the process here. Maybe if I use a bigger paper or maybe even canvas, you could get a really nice piece, because then it wouldn't matter so much that the details are a little bit more on the rougher side. I don't know, we will probably never know. I will never know because I will probably never create a huge art piece with these, but we will see. I am definitely interested in using these again. I'm very curious about how well received this is going to be. I would like to know if you've tried these, and if you haven't, what other art supplies that are comparable have you tried? Have you tried the Caran Neocolor crayons or the Faber Castell Gelatos or oil pastels. I would really like to know your opinions. And of course, these are kids' art supplies, so these honestly are meant to play around with. So I'm glad that I managed to embrace this playfulness here. I removed the tape here, and then I added a few more little details here and there, and I also put the colors that I used here on the left side because I thought that it would look cute. And I have to say that this was a really enjoyable process, but this was also the last piece that I created with them, so I had a bit more practice with them. Here I used the Faber Castell Gelatos. This is watercolor paper. It is a smooth-ish watercolor paper, I would say. Then here we have the Tempera sticks in comparison. I think you can really tell how poorly they dissolve with the water in comparison to the gelatos. And I really tried my best to dissolve them with water. I went into that and really worked that into the water with my brush. But honestly, that was not really happening that much. Here we have the crayons, the Neocolors. They look so similar to the gelatos, honestly. The gelatos are just a little bit softer, really just ever so slightly softer than the Caran d'Ache crayons. Otherwise, I would say there's very, very little difference. Here we have oil pastels, and you can see they dissolve with the blending stump really nicely. They don't blend with water, they're not supposed to, but with the blending stump, really, really nice, really, really smooth, works very easily. And then the Tempera stick in comparison, not at all. It does not want to move. Like, it's a struggle. We have the crayons, the gelatos, and the oil pastels. And then also here I am using the Tempera sticks all next to each other, so different consistencies here. The Tempera sticks are definitely the softest ones, but like I said, you have to blend them with each other. If you do that, then you're golden. You have a really nice art supply that dries, can be used in a sketchbook, and is very playful. So here you can have a bit of a look at all of the different products in comparison. I really hope that you enjoyed this. I will try my best to leave links in the description box to all of the products that I've used. And if you'd like to see more interesting and creative art ideas, then check out this video next.